You're listening to DruidCast episode 209. Hello my friends and welcome to DruidCast episode 209. I am your host Dave the Bard, and DruidCast is brought to you on or around the 20th of the month by the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. If you want to find out more about the Order and our courses, you can do that at our website, which is at druidry.org. Opening the show, you heard Unseelie from Fae as Folk. Now, I have played on many a festival lineup with these lovely people, and their live performances, well, they just bring the marquees and the fields to life. The song is from their new album Coven, and it's available in all of the usual online places, so do check out the rest of the album and catch them live if you can. For the talky bit this month, we welcome Pete Jennings back to the show. I recently played a set at the Staffordshire Pagan Conference, and Pete was on the bill that day talking about Ragnarok, and I managed to record the talk and get Pete's permission to play it on the show. Now, it's not quite like Christopher last month with the F-bomb language, but there are a couple of expletives, so again, it's up to you whether you listen to this in an adult environment. That's up to you. It's a great talk, and Pete goes deep into the lore surrounding the Norse end and rebirth of the world. So grab your cuppa, but hold on tight, my friends, because they're going to get a little bit rough.
The talkie bit.
So, hello, my name's Pete Jennings, and the last hour we've had an excellent presentation on witchcraft and life. So, you know, all things have to be in balance, so I'm doing about death for the next hour. Yeah, and being Ragnarok and Viking and everything, you know, I should get out swiftly at the end because the whole theatre gets destroyed. Sorry, Dave, if you was playing here this evening.
I'm all the way from Brighton.
So, Ragnarok, what is it? What is it? Hello. In Norse mythology, Ragnarok, which means sort of something like twilight of the gods, or more correctly, the final destiny of the gods, is a fierce battle on Vigridra, the plain where battle surges, and it's between the Norse gods and their Einherjar warriors of Valhalla against their enemies, resulting in a lot of death and destruction. Well, you'd expect that, wouldn't you, being Norse and all that. The world is then covered in water, but rises again fresh and revived. And some gods survive, and a couple of humans as well, to repopulate the earth, which is where it gets a bit different. And it was this difference that made me look at it a bit harder. I mean, I've known about Ragnarok for decades, but I'd never really deeply thought about it. I just accepted it. And why is it different to other mythology? Why does it have a survival bit to it, and so on? I'm not going to do about the beginning of the Norse worlds in this talk because it'd make it take too long. But, says he, it all comes from this book, which is Ragnarok, Creation and Destruction within Norse mythology. I'm just doing the destruction bit this afternoon. Basically, in creation, the Norse worlds are created when ice meets fire within the primal abyss, which is called Ginnega Gap. Fire and ice come together, all creation comes out of that. Firstly, a big giant called Ymir who creates the worlds and the other giants, and it goes on a bit. All right, so we're talking the other end of the scale where it finishes. So, what was supposed to happen? Picture of a volcano there. That's the Fagradalsfjall volcano in the Reykjanes Peninsula of Iceland in 2021. You'll probably be aware there's a volcano been going off in the last few months in Iceland, which is more a slit volcano, not a cone. A few years ago, do you remember that volcano that stopped all the world's air traffic? I was there about 6 weeks beforehand, less than that, 3 weeks, overlooking that volcano, which was a glacier at the time. Yeah, and I'm not going to try and pronounce the name of it because it's bloody impossible. Anyway, I was touring Iceland at the time, and so a few weeks later I wouldn't have got out because when the volcano went, it hit the glacier, and this is why I'm rambling on. Fire from the volcano hit ice. Yes? And isn't that what all the scientists are now saying as the two things you really want for finding life on another planet? They look for evidence of water and evidence of heat. Yeah? And basically from that lot, eventually you may or may not get life. Fast forward to our time, of course, heat in our day, plus ice, could be interpreted as global warming and melting the ice and drowning all of us. So it's the beginning and end of all things if you think about it in those terms. Anyway, when it was supposed to happen, Ragnarok, is after 3 continuous years of winter, known as Fimbulwinter. And war between families, so civil war, and incest becomes common. Well, it seems, several times in history there's been several years of winter, volcanoes going off and stuff like that. War between families, well, we've had things like the English Civil War. Most countries have had civil wars, so they've had that. Incest becomes common. Now that's the harder one to get unless you live in Norfolk. Look, I come from Suffolk. It's traditional to mock Norfolk. Now there's a prediction in Gilgidin chapter 51 that the wolf will swallow the sun and then his brother will swallow the moon. Now, I personally believe that these are Skoll, whose name translates as mockery, and Hatti, the despiser, the hater. And those respectively, not Fenrir. Some people say Fenrir, but in fact, if you look at Fenrir's wolf, he's bound until a bit later in the story, where he was bound after Tyr had made his sacrifice at his hand. In Van Thruddersmal, stanza 46, Odin asks, what will become of the sun? Sol, the sun is feminine in Norse, by the way. Sorry, did you all think he was male? Well, I have to explain. Norse, just a bit deeper verse. Actually, they're not the only mythology, but within Celtic mythology, you've got the sun is male because he's all fiery and, raging like a bloke, and the moon is all dark and mysterious like a woman. But we all know that there's stereotypes. There are dark and mysterious women, and there's hot and fiery, women and that. Well, within the Norse, the sun is a woman because she's female and embracing and warm, and the moon is cold and hard like a man. Yeah. So anyway, Sol, the female sun, responds that Sol will bear a daughter before Fenrir assails her, and that after Ragnarok, this daughter will continue her mother's path, so the sun will still be there. So, we've dealt with worldwide winters caused by dust covering the sky and that from volcanoes. Of course, the same would happen in a nuclear winter if some silly pressed the wrong button. And it's got to be admitted that there are similar descriptions in Mark's Gospel, in the Christian Bible. Book 13. Whether the author was aware of that is open to conjecture. Who wrote first, or did they just write independently? We don't know. But many early Christians then believed that the world would end with cataclysms and a final judgment, with Christ returning to earth. In advance of this, good Christians would ascend to heaven in what's become known as a rapture, which is a concept still held by certain Christians today, particularly some in America. So, what happens in it? Well, Poetic Edda, Velaspa, poem stanza 40 onwards. Just to try and prove I'm not making this up myself. Translating it from the Ursula Dron translation. It sates itself on the lifeblood of fated men, paints red the powers' homes with crimson gore. Black become the sun's beams in the summers that follow, weather's all treacherous. Do you still seek to know? And what? So, and the rest of the day will be cloudy with scattered showers. Interesting this bit at the end, because Odin is asking her what happens. Yeah? She tells him, but then says, you sure you want to know? You sure you want to know more? Because having knowledge brings a responsibility to maybe try and do something about it, or to live with the fear and knowing that you can't prevent it happening. If I came to you and said, I know the exact date on which you're about to die, yeah, would you actually want to know it? No, exactly. Most people wouldn't. Some people would. Most people wouldn't. And so she's saying, yeah, it's all right, this knowledge, but it's not always a good thing to know what's happening. And she then describes 3 roosters crowing throughout the 9 worlds, and the hellhound gambler produces deep howls in front of the cave of Nibhelair, and he breaks free. Brothers will fight and kill each other, and sisters' children will defy kinship. It is a harsh in the world, whoredom rife, an axe age, a sword age, shields are riven, a wind age, a wolf age. Before the world goes headlong, no man will have mercy on another. Okay, the no man having mercy on another, civil war, things like that. We know in our English Civil War there were some families that fought each other because they were on different sides or so. But all this stuff about whoredom and children defiling their mother's kin, this is about incest. Now, we find that fairly shocking, most of us now, incest. But then, with the social and moral lines taken by Norse society, that was almost the end of the world in itself. Huge shame, complete loss of reputation. And I have to say that reputation is the most important thing to most of our Viking forefathers. Because before they had a thought of heaven or hell, they had reputation. You lived by your reputation, and people would remark upon you after you were dead by your reputation. If you destroyed your reputation or somebody destroyed it for you, then that was the worst thing that could happen, So reputation and particularly sexual crimes and so on, absolutely a no-no. So to have that in there is quite something. Anyway, she carries on the god Heimdall, whose name translates as the Illuminator. Now Heimdall is that one who hangs out on Bifrost, the Rainbow Bridge, with a bloody great horn and warns people when the baddies are coming. Yeah? You notice maybe along the way I'm translating the names as to what they mean or what we think they mean. And this was the way I tackled this, because personally I was unsure what Ragnarok really meant, what the meaning behind it was. And I've found in the past sometimes knowing what the names meant helps. In some places it does, in other places it's no bloody help at all, and I'm still mystified, I have to admit that. But at least I got a bit further with it. So, once the horn is sounded by Heimdall, Odin consults with Mimir's head, which is in like a well at the bottom of the Yggdrasil tree and is very wise. So he goes down there to consult Mimir. Meanwhile, the rest of the gods sit in council and try to decide what to do. Sort of a war cabinet, I suppose. The world tree Yggdrasil, which contains the 9 worlds of the Norse mythology, shakes the earth apart with earthquakes. So the dwarves, the dark elves, they presumably perish because they live beneath the rocks. And if they came outside and the sun was still shining, they turned to stone anyway. So, it's gone for them. The Einherjar warriors that people might have heard of, the ones who go to Valhalla, yeah? People have a little bit of a misconception about Valhalla and so on, particularly outside of the heathen path. It's only a certain number of warriors that go to Valhalla, the ones that are chosen that are the bravest, yeah? It's not necessarily the ones that have won, somebody who bravely fights 12 people to one and gets slashed to pieces might go, and maybe one of the 12 wouldn't go because, hey, they only joined in a group operation, So, and there is a literal maxim if you count up a couple of things within the mythology, because it says there's 540 doors that they'll march out of, and there's 800 warriors will march out of each door. Who's good at mental arithmetic? I'll cut it short for you. That equals 432,000 warriors. Now, with the rate that they were fighting in those days, they'd have reached that level within a year or two. But I'll point out that 432,000 would be a number that your average Viking would have had no concept. It's like trying to get us to imagine infinity. Yeah, we're not capable really of imagining infinity. We might have an idea of it, but well, it would have been the same for them. You know, it's like that Baldrick thing with the potatoes. You know, one potato and another potato is two potatoes and another one is soup. You know, so yeah, we're talking of difficulties over perceiving the numbers, but certainly the quota would have been long used up. And of course, they're chosen by the Valkyries, half of who were under the command of Odin and half who were under the command of Freya. So, Valhalla is only one place that you can go when you're dead within the Norse mythology. Virtually every god and goddess has a hall. So if you particularly follow one god or goddess, you'll probably go to their hall. Personally, I've got no desire to go to Valhalla. Yes, I've acted as a reenactment warrior and have fought a fair amount in my life in various ways, but doing that every bloody day for the rest of eternity until Ragnarok doesn't appeal to me at all. Basically, they go out, practice every day, get killed get repaired, get given some food, get given some mead, and then it all starts again tomorrow. I'd rather go to somewhere a bit more comfortable, frankly. You know, so Caesar on a Hall, Freya's Hall is the one for me. Although the trouble is she likes cats and I like dogs, so I might have a difficulty there. Although maybe it's a dog heaven because they can chase the cats. Thing is, with this Ragnarok, it only mentions some of the characters. It doesn't say what happens to everybody. It doesn't say what happened to the Einherjar, which probably means that they all die horribly with lots of blood. Yeah. So, out of the enemies, the first to arrive is the Jotun frost giant Grim, and he arrives with a load of other ice giants across the Rainbow Bifrost Bridge, which then breaks under their weight, so nobody else can use it. But in an alternative source, Gylfaginning in 50, Hymir steers the ship, but Voluspa 51 asserts that Loki breaks free from his chains and steers the ship Naglfar. Naglfar, interestingly enough, is made from the toenails of dead men, yeah? Untrimmed nails, fingernails and toenails, which gives us the reason for a particular Norse custom of keeping your nails neatly trimmed so you do not contribute to the nasty ship that's going to appear at Ragnarok. And if somebody does die before they trim their nails, you trim them, you know, before they're buried or burnt or whatever. So, you know, I look at modern heathens and go, you're not a proper heathen, your nails are long. So, the ship is driven by big waves, which are caused by Jormungandr of the World Serpent thrashing about. The World Serpent normally goes around the world and bites its own tail and stays in one place, but it lets go of its tail and thrashes about because all hell's breaking loose, literally. What I do find particularly interesting is the forces of fire, which is the god Surt and his associates from Muspelheim, and the ice giants come in, working together. Huh? Fire and ice working together? What's going on there? It's not natural, is it? They're normally opposed. Why doesn't the fire melt the ice giants? You know? Did they think this out properly? But, you know, that's what it says. And they attack the gods. And of course, the fire and ice, as I said earlier, is the original constituent of what formed the worlds in the first place. So are we saying, you know, the elements of the worlds themselves are destroying themselves? Back to global warming and the drowning of planet Earth, I suppose, but there you go. I feel there's some significance in that that's maybe lost. That's one of the things I couldn't decide about, but think of it for yourselves and let me know. Several gods are specifically killed in Gylfaginning in chapter 51. Although the battle is generally portrayed as gods via giants, it's not absolutely true. You see, you've got to think how the gods come about. And several of the gods have got giant parentage, at least on one side. You know, Odin, Thor. No, I mean Thor, for example. In the stories, he's always going around bashing giants. He hates them. And yet, if you look at his creation story, he is half giant. So what's really going on there? Is he fighting part of himself? You know that little analogy, you must have heard it, of the two little demons on your shoulders. Eat the cake, don't eat the cake, don't eat the... eat the cake. Is he fighting a part of himself? In psychological terms, what does that mean to us? Are we fighting a part of ourselves? I was saying, as a qualified psychotherapist, which I am, yeah, almost all of us fight parts of ourselves. Otherwise, we'd have absolutely free reign, wouldn't we? Just go about doing everything that we fancy, whether it was legal or illegal, or, you know, oh, I like that car, I'll take it. Yeah. But there's a bit that says, well, actually, that's illegal, and also the bloke will be really upset that you took it, you know. So, yeah, the gods fighting the giants, but the gods are part giant themselves in sometimes. So let's look at a few individual ones quickly. Odin. In Thorwald's Cross, Kirkandris on the Isle of Man shows Odin being swallowed by Fenris wolf. This is the monstrous wolf that Tyr gave his hand to try and have bound for a long time. He's avenged by his son Vidar, who steps on the wolf's mouth, holds it open, and sticks a spear down his throat. Like great film, wouldn't it? There's an added bit. It doesn't show it in this picture, but there was a belief that the son Vidar was able to hold the mouth open because he got a special boot with an extra thick sole. And that special boot with the extra thick sole was made up of the fragments of leather left over from making people's shoes and stuff. So they were all gathered together and, you know, kept and so on. Thor furiously fights the serpent Jormungandr, the one that goes around the earth. He's had a go at it a couple of times before, in fact. If you look at the mythology. Thor at one stage goes fishing with a giant, nicks the giant's most precious bull called Heaven Bellower, chops its head off to use as bait, chucks that over the side of the boat. Jormungand grabs it. The giant is so afraid that he tries to cut the line. Meanwhile, Thor is having such a battle trying to haul it in that his feet go through the bottom of the boat, so he has to give up. That's one time he's had a go. There's another time, there's a very long story about a tale when Thor goes to the hall of Utgard Loki, and he goes on this mission, this quest to this place where these fantastic giants live. And him and Loki, who's with him, have all these sort of contests with them, which they fail miserably at. And the giants all laugh at them. And they sort of leave with their heads down, going, didn't do very well there. But Utgard Loki, the chief, once they're clear of the castle, goes, you'll never see this castle again, you're not coming back here. It's disappearing into magic, because you don't realise we fixed it all. And that one there, Thor, where you was trying to pick up the cat and couldn't, it was actually a coil of Jormungandr. We thought you was going to bring the earth down doing it, and we got really frightened. And it's a fantastic magical tale. Look it up, Utgard Loki, the visitor Utgard Loki. So he's had a couple of goes at it before. He finally has a go at it here, kills it, but in killing it, it drips venom from its teeth onto Thor, and he staggers back 9 paces and dies. 9. Magical number within Norse mythology, 3 and 9. Other systems, 7s, 15s, 13s, whatever. In Norse, 9. Or as we say in Suffolk, 9. So that's what Ammonster thought. We then got the Vanir fertility god Fred. There's a little statuette from him from Sweden. And he's defeated by Surt and his flaming sword. Now there's a little back tale to this, because Freya hasn't got his best sword to fight him with. Because in an earlier tale, he fancies this giantess lass, and he sends his mate down to woo her on his behalf. And his mate says, well, what's in it for me? I've got to venture into giant land to do it. And he says, all right, have me best sword then. So he's no longer got his best sword for this fight. So what does that tell you about giving up everything for love? Oh yeah, what about Loki? Now, Loki, normally portrayed as the baddie, isn't he? Yeah. Look, Loki's got nothing to do with the handsome rogue that you see on TV and in Netflix, yeah. He's a baddie who is responsible for the death of Balder and all sorts of naughty things. He's taken on by Heimdall, the one with the horn living on the Rainbow Bridge, and they kill each other. You know, it's a 0-0 draw, basically. No extra time. I will point out, though, that with Loki, it's not so black and white as it seems. Because although he does some bad things, he's a trickster who goes too far, basically. He starts with doing silly jokes and tricks, but then, you know, the person who takes it too far and people get hurt and all that sort of thing. But at times, he is the only one that speaks the truth. If you look at the flighting of Loki, there's a saga where the king of the sea, Njord, throws a big feast for all the gods, and he doesn't invite Loki. Now that's against all the laws of hospitality, yeah, that the Vikings had. And when Loki turns up, they're embarrassed, and so he's let in. Instead of taking his place and having a swig of mead and eating an ox or something or other, he goes, forgot to tell me, did you? Well, what can I expect? You all know better than I think. He insults them all. Now, there is a custom within many communities, and it still exists in some places, about ritual insulting. Yeah, and a jokey sort of, hello, you old bastard, jokey. But this isn't jokey. This is for real. He's making real criticisms. And the interesting thing is, they've got no comeback because what he's telling is the truth. The very painful, uncomfortable truth. Nevertheless, later on, when he's responsible for the death of Balder, he's bound with a snake dripping poison onto him and so on. He's bound until Ragnarok, when it all comes undone. Yeah. So don't believe necessarily this is just a good versus bad thing. You know, this shades to it. And then we've got one who's too often forgotten, I feel. Raw Tyr, heroic one-handed Tyr, who gave his hand to Fenris to as surety for him being bound up, you know, but then loses it when he's not unbound. And but he doesn't fight him. He fights Gamera, the Hellhound. And once again, it's a 0-0 draw. They kill each other. There's some sources that suggest that maybe Tyr was the chief god before Odin. Yeah? Whether him losing his hand disqualified him for that post or not, I don't know. But anyway, certainly he's the bravest and the one that you call upon if you want courage and so on, and a god of war, the Tyr rune. In fact, do you know that arrow sign they put on War Department stuff during the war? Yeah? WD and then an arrow? Still see it about on some things. That's the Tyr rune for the god of war. So, we killed a lot. Let's see who survives. So, we got Hother, Balder, Njord, Vidar, Vali, Mosi, Magni, and quite a few other unnamed deities survive. Plus, Nidhoggr, the corpse-eating dragon that lives in the nether regions, yeah? Because it said that still murderers and so on and oathbreakers will still go down there. What oathbreakers and murderers? Well, there are 2 humans left. They've hidden, sustained by dew. We think possibly Yggdrasil. The name of the place they hid is unclear, but their names are Lifthrasil, basically meaning life, and so on. So they survived to repopulate the earth. And in Völuspá, the Volva foresees the earth reappearing from the water, and an eagle over a waterfall hunting fish on a mountain. The surviving Aesir meet together and find the golden game pieces with which they once enjoyed playing games in earlier times. The re-emerged fields grow without needing to be sown, and the gods Hodra and Baldur return from hell and live happily together, despite the fact that Hodra was the one that threw the mistletoe dart, but it was Loki that caused him to do it when he was blind. The Vanir Sigurd, Njord, survives, but he goes back to Vanaheim, because there's 2 families of gods, the Vanir and the Aesir, and he's one of the Vanir ones. And Honir casts runes of prophecy. Now I find this really humorous, this bit. It goes almost unmentioned by anybody, unnoticed. Back in the time when the Vanir and the Aesir had a battle, yeah, it's sort of inconclusive, and at the end they exchange hostages. Well, the Aesir do quite well, because they get Frey and Freya, who are Vanir, yeah? And Frey and Freya are a good pair to have. The 2 hostages that the Aesir give to the Vanir is Honir and Mimir. Well, I don't get on very well with them. You know, they consult them over things and never seem to get a good decision. And in anger, they chop Mimir's head off and give it back to the Aesir. Odin takes it down, and you remember, he consults Mimir's head, because in fact Mimir is very wise. Yeah? But Honir remains with them for some time, until they realise that despite appearing very wise, he isn't. He can't make a decision to save his life. He'll sort of go, well, on the one hand, but on the other hand, the decision's yours, really. Yeah. And eventually they get fed up with this and realise, you know, they've been sold a pig in a poke, really. So to have Honir at the end of the day casting runes as deciding what they're going to do, I find quite funny. But everybody else misses that bit, I think. New halls will rise. Gimli is a hall thatched with gold where nobility will reside, and there's others including Brimir and Sundri. But Nastron, the coast of corpses, will still receive the oathbreakers, adulterers and murders overseen by Nidhogg. So this is very different to most mythologies. So most mythologies, you get the end days, the judgment, the whatever, and then that's it. Boom. You know, the good ones end up in heaven, the rest destroyed. But the Norse mythology, they have another go at it. Is that eternal Norse sense of optimism? If you look, even at the people of Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Iceland and that today, they've got a very dualistic thing, I think, that they can have quite a sort of dark sense of humour and a grim outlook on some things. If anybody's ever watched any of the Danish detective series, you'll know what I mean. But on the other hand, they are quite optimistic and outgoing and want to be friends with everybody, and I think things like that. So maybe that's why they needed an outcome of where there's some survivors, you know. This one version of the mythology, stanza 65, which said that a powerful, mighty one will descend from above and rule everything. Now, there are 3 versions in existence, and it's only in one. I wonder if anybody that came later on might have added to that one. Think about it, a powerful mighty one coming down. A few thoughts of my own on this, of attitudes and so on, towards this story, and so on, how it's regarded today. Unfortunately, it's been very much affected by all those bloody Netflix movies and Marvel comics and so on that distort it and change the characters, change the names. You know, it's been going on for years, ever since bloody Wagner started writing operas, and so on. So you really have to go back to the basics to get the true story. I've only been able to go back to English translations because I'm not an Old Norse scholar, unfortunately. There is no mention of it within Anglo-Saxon mythology, but there's not much mention of mythology in Anglo-Saxon writings anyway, because by the time they'd learned to write, it was from the church, and the church didn't like that sort of thing. You know, there's some people who say, well, it's got lessons about, you know, the end of the earth and global warming and so on. You interpret it how you like. You know, there's the individual things about Frey giving away his best sword that would fight by itself, by the way, I forgot to tell you that. People always think that's a wonderful magical thing, to have a sword that fight by itself. Have you thought, you know, if you got it out to clean it, it might kill you, mightn't it? I never say that it fights by itself against your enemies only, does it? It just says it fights by itself. Just a personalised thing. Personally, I regard, and I hasten to add, I might be the only heathen that thinks this way. I was trained as a psychotherapist, so I tend to think of things in those terms very often. And I see the gods not as little old men running around a garden, but as aspects of my own intellect, higher self, brain, whatever, ego, you know, and so on. And they are like those lots of little voices, you know, going, do it, don't do it, you know, those sorts of things. And that somehow I have to discover my true way through that. But I'll always have competing voices within me, apart from those of you know that, you know, the other personalities that I inhabit. I think of my gods and goddesses like that. I think of them as within myself. And I think of gods and goddesses within everybody. They might come out in different cultures, you know, they might be called different names and so on. And therefore, if everybody's got the god and goddess within them, we should treat each other accordingly. Because as I treat you, I'm treating the god and goddess. Okay, some people have got their god and goddess very well suppressed, or they've only got the god up there and no goddess, or vice versa, or whatever. But as a shorthand, I'm quite happy to, you know, talk about Thor with great beard and a bloody great hammer in his hand, charging along in a chariot pulled by goats, because people can identify that, and it's an easy way for me to picture and so on. But on an inner level, if I say I'm getting in touch with Thor, I might be saying I'm getting in touch with the side of my personality that is righteous anger. You know, I really hate unfairness, for instance, as a real trigger for me. So if I'm going to fight that, I maybe need to get hold of Thor, or the part of me that's Thor, and go, right, how do I deal with this? So, as I say, that's very personal to me, but people will always have lots of different views on this. And inevitably, they'll also be driven by lots of exterior influences. So, we've got Wagner down the bottom left-hand corner there. You know, it was him that stuck some of these tales into operas, yeah? And when he did, the opera managers of the Victorian period, to differentiate between the good guys and the bad guys, put the bad guys, the Vikings, with horns on their helmets, because they'd seen a picture somewhere that looked like that. Never happened. Vikings didn't wear horned helmets. So, yeah, and he changed the names, changed the plots, all sorts. So is it. Then you've got the films, the Marvel comics in the middle there. And then we got things like music, You know, there's a fine bunch of lads, the black metal band Ragnarok, who I'm hoping will compete in the next Eurovision. Yeah, all these things influence us, things that we hear on telly, conversations that we had. And of course, nowadays, we've got the extra influence, which is far too many books, like this one, Ragnarok. Come and see us afterwards if you want a copy or any of my other books, or if you want to ask questions, or just to tell me I'm a complete wussock, on a table just inside the reception door, all right? I've got about 2 minutes for any questions before I have to get off the stage. Anything? You're all stunned into silence and you're all waiting for the moment that I promised at the end, where I do the Ragnarok workshop and this whole place is destroyed in fire and brimstone and so on. But Dave here, down the bard, has made a special request that I save it until after he's done his set. What do you reckon? Save it? Right, just for you. You owe me one, mate.
I do.
Thanks very much for listening. Cheers.
I lean back against a tree and look down into the valley. My weary body resting in that mighty oak's embrace. I feel the healing comfort flowing from that place. And I begin to wonder as I feel that tree's deep power. Would the tree remember if I stayed another hour? Just a moment of your time, just a fleeting instant in the tale of your existence. What's an hour to a tree? Would you even notice if I stayed another year or so? It's just a moment of your time. Been on that hillside since before the Civil War, rooted deep and anchored, drawing lifeblood from the ground, and every year returning new life all around. But I begin to wonder as I ask that ancient hillside, would you even notice if the tree remained a whole millennium more? Just a moment of your time, just a fleeting instant in the tale of your existence. What's the lifetime of a tree? Would you even notice if the tree remained 100,000 years? It's just a moment of your time. It's just a moment of your time. It's just a moment of your
Thank you, Pete, for letting me play your talk on the show. Always good to hear your voice on DruidCast. After the show, you heard Just a Moment of Your Time from Rich Morgan, a song pondering the different relationships species on Earth have with the concept of time. Lovely, Rich, and thank you for sending that in. The next song is by Sarah Pacwood, and I received this email from her dear friend Alan Pritchard, and he wrote, I write to mourn the passing of my dear friend Sarah Pacwood. Sarah was a humanitarian aid worker, a Gnostic, a deeply connected wanderer of the nature path, a song weaver and storyteller, a homesteader, a healer, and a peregrino pilgrim. Wherever she went, this beautiful wayfaring soul always stepped gently upon the earth, in service, doing her best to make it a better place. Tragically, Sarah was lost at sea with her husband Brett in July this year. They were making a transatlantic passage on their sailing ship to Theros, on the way to undertake their third Camino Santiago together. Their passing leaves a thread missing from the tapestry of my life and those of her many friends from around the world and all walks of life. We mourn her deeply and remember her fondly. As a bard in training with Obod, Sarah has found a strong voice to weave words, music and art together to tell great stories. She had many songs posted on her YouTube channel, but at the end of last year she released her first song as a single, Meet Me at Table, a celebration of the beauty of breaking bread with old friends and new whilst on pilgrimage. The song was inspired by her first Camino Santiago experience in 2015. It was picked up and featured on several Camino podcasts, as well as being nominated for the Talent is Timeless songwriting competition. I would like to request that we play this beautiful song in tribute to Sarah, humanitarian, wayfarer, healer, peregrino, songweaver, bard, inspiration and friend. Well, Alan, it will be my honour to add her to the voices on DruidCast. So here is Sarah's single, the song Meet Me at Table.
Bring bread and some wine. Our guests are all waiting, your friends and mine. We'll sit down together and serve up good fare, for the land surely blessed us with plenty to share. full. We'll eat till we're full and tell stories till midnight. Sure, it won't be dull. We have more in common than divides us, you see. So be at peace, pilgrim, you're welcome and free. And I'll pour you a glass, and we'll toast this fine day. When you came here for a visit, whilst walking away, and I'll pour you a glass, and we'll toast this fine day. When you came here for a visit, whilst walking away. Otreya, Jesuseya, Otreya, Jesuseya, Otreya, Jesuseya, Otreya, Jesuseya.
Well, my friends, this music means we are approaching the end of the show, but before I go, let's have the results of last month's competition. The prize was a copy of the brand new B Tarot by Christopher Hughes, and the question I asked was, in Christopher's talk he discussed the legacy of two people. For Wicca it was Gerald Gardner, and for Druidry it was another man. What was that man's name? Well, it was Ross Nichols or Newen, the original founder of the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids, and the first name drawn from the hat and winner of that fabulous tarot deck is Martin Blatcher from Plymouth. Congratulations, Martin, that tarot deck will be with you very soon. The prize this month is a copy of Pete Jennings' book Ragnarok, Creation and Destruction Within Norse Mythology, and the question I'd like you to answer is, during the twilight of the gods, the world's serpent, Jormungandr, is killed by one of the Aesir. Who was that god? During the twilight of the gods, the world's serpent, Jormungandr, is killed by one of the Aesir. Who was that god? Email your answer along with your full postal address to podcast@druidry.org, and one of you will win that fabulous book. Well, my friends, that is a show. There is no episode of DruidCast in December. I like to take a month off at the end of the year, so I will see you on or around the 20th of January for episode 210. So, well in advance, have a wonderful solstice and a happy new year, and I wish you all, as ever, peace and blessed be. Goodbye.